do this. Okay. Should be live. Awesome. Happy Friday night, folks. Happy Friday night. Let me just share this out real quickly. All right. Sound is working. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Welcome, everyone. All right. Looking forward to having some fun conversations this evening. I really enjoyed the last live stream. That was a lot of fun. I was able to spend a bit of this week going over one of the objections I heard. And it was something I'd heard a while back, but now I've had some time to seriously think about it. So I'm pretty stoked. It's pretty cool. I'm glad someone brought that up. That guy Troy, he has a really interesting argument against the Bayes design argument. So, anyways, hoping to have some good discussions, maybe around that specific argument or others. Let's see. Anyways, I hope folks have been well. Alrighty. Welcome, folks. Please feel free to submit a request in the guest box. Let's see. I think I might have someone up already. Nope. Okay. If you guys want to have a conversation about the prompt, talking about the existence of God, the truth of Christianity, and anything around that. And then, of course, let me know if you guys are having trouble hearing me as a slightly technically, what's up, Gambit? As a slightly technically challenged person, there are times I don't get the sound right. All right, cool. YouTube's running good. All right, got some guests here. Hey, what's going on? Quotient?
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Hi. How you doing?
Well, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Cool. What's going on?
So, I I left Christianity maybe like 4 years ago.
Okay.
I don't think a God exists.
Okay.
I can't be sure, of course,
Okay.
but from what I've seen in my 40 years on this earth, I do not think a God exists, because the first thing is no one can see him. He's like, it's like saying I have a dog and you're like, where's my dog? You're like, only I can see him. And yeah, and he takes care of me. He's, you know, I the fact that he doesn't make himself show himself to people, especially the ones who are willing to know him. This means that, especially as he's invisible and there's no way to really test and show that he exists. So I think there's no God that exists.
Okay, so this is
Yeah.
based more so because you can't see God like you would see someone else, like another human.
No, I said I can test and observe him.
Okay.
He's not testable or observable anyway.
Okay. Um so
Especially to those who want to see him, and because he says he wants a relationship and he poses himself like this kind of father figure, so it's there's no reason why he shouldn't make himself obvious to everyone.
Okay. Um, what if there was a reason that God didn't make himself like undeniably obvious, though?
It's well, it is it is possible if he exists and doesn't want to make himself obvious to people. That goes contradictory to, well, I do not think that would be a good argument to show that he exists. Yeah, because if he exists and he wants to have a relationship with everyone, except you're saying
Mm-hmm.
that he actually doesn't want some people, like he just doesn't want some people who really want to have a relationship with him. If you can say that, then I can say that goes even against what your Bible says about God.
Right, right. I gotcha. Okay. I was initially speaking more about specifically like just uh, theism, God's existence. But if we move directly to Christianity, um, the way that I guess the way that's mentioned is like if you read in Romans 1, where Paul says that the evidence is kind of all around us, so you'd be left without excuse, right? So what does that mean? What is Paul saying? That creation itself is evidence of God's existence, and so let's put that into a more, um, uh, I guess, digestible manner to somebody who doesn't think that the Bible is true, right? Do, does that have any bearing on whether God exists to you, or is it more so what you've already mentioned?
Uh, well, I would I would think that if I wrote a book, like if I wrote a book and I wanted people to either be entertained or believe in it, even if it's just a joke or it's a fiction or it's historical fiction, whatever, I can just include in it that if you don't believe this, then you're not serious or you're not like what it says like doesn't really matter in this situation. In this
Okay.
situation, what really matters if is what points to the truth of the existence of God, not what
Okay.
the book says.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your opinion on that before I continued. So, with that
Okay.
being said, I would argue that Paul is right and that the evidence is all around us for a creator. So, for example, like, why would we expect there to be life in this universe if there's no God?
Uh, the fact is that is every time I try to look that up, like somewhere in any book or just on ChatGPT, oh, the answer always comes up that this is an age-old question. Like it
Mm-hmm.
goes right to the fundamentals of existence itself. Like,
Right.
of course, the question of why is there something rather than nothing.
Right.
Um, uh, and I think the question, the existence of God complicates this question even further than the non-existence of God, right? Because we can almost just uh, conclude that there was never nothing, like the concept of nothing, even this the concept of nothing is not something which is really understood both by philosophers, scientists, and cosmologists. The concept of nothing, imagine, try to imagine uh, a situation when there is absolutely, in fact, the words lack to describe a condition, that kind of state, the state of absolute nothing. Even like it's a difficult thing to imagine. So that's why people just posit that space time is necessary. That it's a necessary thing. Space and time are necessary because even if you posit a God, you would say God. Uh, like yeah, it's just that space time is just a necessary thing. Space and time. Yeah,
I don't know about
that's
space, but I would even be okay with saying time is necessary. Because I'm not sure that time is actually a thing, like that time exists per se. Because if you want
yeah.
to say time exists, there are going to be some commitments that usually the atheist is not going to want to make. We don't have to go down that route, but if you want to say that, then there are some commitments you're going to have to make. Whereas I'm willing to just grant that time isn't actually a thing. It's like a measurement, kind of like a meter or a foot
Yeah.
or an inch, something like that, right? It's the measurement of change as opposed to the measurement of distance or something like that. Um, whereas space is um, like that's what's between matter. So, or where matter exists. So, I'm not sure if you want to say that space is fundamental per se, because like if you don't posit that matter is fundamental also, then you're going to have to explain why matter um, came into existence or did matter come into existence. So let me ask you this: do you think the universe is eternal?
Um, the truth of the matter is, I do not know the answer to that. As in, uh,
Well, you don't have to
a
know
lot
for
of
with certainty, but what's your opinion?
a lot of scientists posit that it could be eternal.
Sure, but this is more of a philosophical question than a scientific question.
Um, well, logically, it's difficult to say it's eternal. Yeah, it's hard to say it could. Logically, it's hard to say eternal because we would be faced with the problem of regression of infinite regress. I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I agree with you there. I think we're going to run into a much more complicated hypothesis if the universe is eternal, because the infinite regression is going to consist of an infinite amount of changes, which requires an infinite amount of causes that require an infinite amount of explanations. Whereas under a, a finite universe, we only have one cause, one change, the universe going from a state of existence or non-existence to existence. Well, that's what we're looking for an explanation of. So I would agree. I think that that's simpler. And if it's simpler from a principle of parsimony, like a legitimate way, not just like easier to understand, then I think we should go with that. Don't you?
Uh, well, as much as I don't want to like give a specific answer for that, yeah, I could lean with because when I try to explore the possibility of an infinite regress, I
Mm-hmm.
do not. I, 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 I mean, without if we want to look at our reality now, I can, I lean towards maybe some start somewhere, but the start it's a tricky. I don't want to like put an answer to that. Why? Because the problem of infinite the problem of a beginning. If there's a beginning of the universe, then we still haven't yet found the cause of the universe, right? We still haven't found the cause. You could posit that it's God, but we could posit that it's something else, right? So
Sure. So what would the other option
right,
be?
right. You mean something else apart from God?
Yeah.
Yeah, anything else? Anything else?
Anything else? Like what?
You want me to put a label to it, but I could
Well, I
just say
want you
it
to
could be
come up with
anything
like a
else.
legitimate. So, because I've been down this discussion before, right? The flying spaghetti monster, unicorn, Spanky,
Yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and essentially, what's going to happen is you're going to describe the characteristics of a thing that would be able to cause a universe to come into existence, right? Now, that thing is going to have the same characteristics as the explanation I would give as God or as a like a theism type of explanation, whether classical theism, neoclassical, whatever. So we're then going to get to a point to where we're providing the same explanation with a different name. So if that's the case, then why are we disagreeing with one another? We're just disagreeing with the title, but we're describing the same thing.
Uh, uh, well, I don't think you could only propose a God in this situation, because
Okay, so let's go over
you
what
could
else
only
is we could
you could
propose. So let's find a
okay
more plausible explanation than God.
okay
Okay.
um we could propose evolution. We could say the universe was always there. You are saying God is
Well,
the
wait. We've
is the
already
beginning cause.
established that we
Okay.
have a
Yeah.
better, like, we've already established that from the
Yeah.
principle of parsimony, a finite
Right.
universe is more probable than an infinite universe.
Right.
Right.
I
So
agree
so
with you.
now we have to go to, all right, what's the best explanation for the cause of the universe to go from non-existence to existence?
Okay. I agree with you. But you do also understand that if you propose a God,
Mm-hmm.
you will you are proposing someone who is also eternal, which means we
Mm-hmm.
are not avoiding the problem of infinite regress.
No, because God would be uncaused.
Yeah, right. He will
Right.
be uncaused, right?
Right. So I don't need an
Oh,
infinite amount
but
of
but
causes
it
to
means,
explain God.
you mean he's uncaused, which means he's eternal.
Yes, but there is nothing that God is contingent on, whereas an infinite series of universes would be contingent upon an infinite series of causes. So
So
that's why it's not.
what do
That's
you?
the clear symmetry breaker. So there's no special pleading.
So you are saying that at a particular point in time, God appeared. He's not eternal.
No, it's not what I'm saying.
So you're saying he appeared at a particular point in time.
No, it's not what I'm
What
saying.
what
What I'm
what are you
saying
saying
is
then?
that God is uncaused. He is the uncaused first cause.
Okay. So so there are either two things, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Either he is uncaused, which means he is eternal,
Yes,
or
he is
he's
eternal.
if he is eternal, then it means we are still at the problem of infinite regress, because if he is eternal means he has always been there, like for
Mm-hmm.
infinite times in the past. So we are faced with the problem of infinite regress.
So I've given a clear symmetry breaker as to why this is not a problem as opposed to an infinite series of universes. So if you had like an infinite static universe, that would be a different ballgame, like a universe that didn't have entropy or something like that, or that wasn't expanding. Then we wouldn't have this issue. Then we would truly be able to say, well, I don't know, we can do the same thing with the universe as we can with God, but that's not the same thing, right? The problem is we know we can observe the universe is expanding. We can observe entropy in real time. If we use, like, if we want to be fair and just try to at least grant the like most commonly accepted laws in physics, right? We'll grant like the most commonly academically accepted laws in all studies, in all disciplines, for the matter of this argument, right? And this could be any kind of discipline you want to bring up. For in this case, physics, the second law of thermodynamics, right? That entropy is forever increasing in a closed system. So if the universe does experience entropy, like that's why you had mentioned earlier, scientists say that the universe is eternal. Yeah, these same scientists, cosmologists, theoretical physicists are going to say that there's going to eventually be a moment where the universe reaches heat death, where the universe will end. It won't be forever. We will cease to exist. If humanity continues to exist for the length of the universe, there will be a point where humans will cease to exist. Same for the universe. This is because it can only expand so much, and there's only a certain amount of usable energy that the universe has, right? And that would mean there's going to be a point to where the entropy cannot decay anymore. There's no energy to lose. So that's where we go to heat death. So there must be a change there in the state of the universe, just like there was a change to the point of not expanding to expanding. Like in a normal Big Bang model, think of like a balloon, right? That starts, or let's just imagine balloon starts with almost nothing and then starts blowing up like a, can't really see my hands, but they say the universe is flat. Some people say that, so it's kind of like this. Um, but it comes out in almost like a
Mm.
cone shape, right? And so it's continuing to expand. There's going to be a point to what either like you have Carol Chen or like some other Carol Chen is Sean Carroll, and I forget Chen's um, first name. They came up with a model where there's like a parallel universe with reverse entropy, and then those switch with each other over time. And then someone like Roger Penrose has a cyclical universe. I don't know if you know these names or not. These are just people you could look up that have these models. And that's going to have a universe that's going by itself through a state of entropy, reverse entropy, entropy, reverse entropy eternally. But these are changes that are taking place, and there have to be explanations for these changes. Unless we want to say there are no explanations for these changes, thus we would violate the principle, the causal principle, which is like a philosophical principle. We can go there, but that would be, I think that's going to put you in a very tough position. So with God, there are no changes with God's existence. He's an uncaused first cause. There's no changes to explain. So we don't need to have an infinite series of explanations. Like the infinite regress is a problem because of the infinite amount of explanations. That's where it boils. That's where it becomes problematic, because the old saying is, where did the universe come from, or whatever the phrase was. And it comes from a turtle. Where did the turtle come from? Another turtle. And it's turtles all the way down. Right? That's the old phrase. That's kind of where this stems from in Greek philosophy. But that's not what's going on here with God. So there's a clear symmetry breaker, thus avoiding special pleading.
So, uh, yeah. Well, since you talked about special pleading, I think saying that God is on cause is special pleading. But
Why is that
besides that,
special pleading?
yeah, because everything else is on cost, but you just, for no special reason, just decided that God should be the uncost one, the uncost thing in the whole process. So, but that aside, what the point I wanted to make was that we could just say, without, just like you said, God is on cost, I could just posit that the universe is actually on cost.
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
couldn't
we
say
would
that you
still
would
be
be
in the same
wrong a
fix.
priori, but so
Yeah.
let's explore that, right? So what would an uncaused universe look like? So the here's the problem with positing an uncaused universe. There is somewhat of a solution that Graham Oppy, he's a famous atheist philosopher of religion, has come up with for this kind of Kalam style argument. But we'll go over that in a second. So the problem with saying an uncaused universe is we unless you want to just completely go against the consensus of the scientific paradigm here, physics, geology, or really just physics is going to be the main thing we're going to look at, physics and cosmology, you're going to say that the universe had a point where it wasn't expanding and then a point that it was. Because you can only, like, we measure the life or the age of the universe based off of the distant starlight, right? And so we're going back from the moment of the start of the expanse to today, right? And so the start of the expanse, we go back, what we're saying in time. That's what they say. If you go back and look throughout, that's what the James Webb Telescope was for. You're actually looking back in time. Maybe colloquially, you could say, I say colloquially, they say real. But the point of me saying this is there is a moment where there was no expansion, and then there was. That's a change. There has to be a cause, an explanation for that change. So by saying the universe is uncaused, and there's a clear instance of a change that must be explained, we are violating the causal principle to do so, which is a very crucial principle, like in philosophy. You could do that, but I'm not sure that you would want to violate the causal principle.
So the thing here is, you seem to just be borrowing from science when, like, it's convenient for you to, like, make a point, like, um or are you trying to internally critique what I'm saying? I don't understand because
I'm doing an
you s-
internal critique on you.
you
Yes.
sometimes I feel like you're boring from the scientific perspective
Well, why
when you
can't I
say
use
that.
science?
Well, because
It's weird.
um uh, you're using it to support your point, and it comes off as if it's how can I put this? It's not within the God explanation. It's not within the Christian view of things. Yeah,
To
it's
use
not within the Christ.
science?
Sorry.
Or are you talking about specifically like the age of the universe and Big Bang, that type of thing?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Yeah, like everything that the Christianity everything that Christianity proposes, it's against science, like
Such as
miracles,
miracles have
miracle
nothing to do with
buffs,
science.
gods that appear, gods, all those things are they are not within they are the Christian view. So when you go outside of the Christian view and you want to start talking about what the scientists are talking about, what the cosmologists are
This is
talking
not
about,
outside of the
seems
Christian view. This is just a blatant
okay.
category error. You don't use science to measure miracles. Let me ask you, can you scientifically prove that a painting is beautiful?
Well, I'm sure
Go ahead. Explain to me how we do that.
there would be the colors, there would be I don't know, the colors used, the hues, the saturation, there's a lot. There's a lot. The strokes. You could measure all of those and probably come up with I don't know.
Okay, my friend, when
Yeah,
you're taking a painting class, is that an art class or a science class?
yeah. It's an art class.
Okay. The reason that there's a difference in college education between the arts and the sciences is because you cannot use science to do an art, right? They're just two distinct categories. So, science is not the only avenue to truth. Science is not the only avenue to understanding something. So, like I think there are certain things science cannot prove. One of them is beauty. Like science can't bring us aesthetic truths. That comes from other means. And then there's like science can't prove math. It can't prove logic because science requires logic and math to function. Otherwise, if there's no logic in math, then you can't use science. So what I'm trying to say is that what you're doing is you're using the wrong. It's like you're using a ruler uh, to hear something, right? It's just the wrong instrument to measure what we're talking about. So the reason that we can even recognize miracles is because we see that this would be a violation of nature. So science would actually help us determine the order of nature, right? And then upon discovering the order of nature, when we see there might be a miracle or when we hear of a miracle, we know that something that's being claimed is or isn't a miracle because of this violation. Right? So
Hmm.
that's actually a tool we're using to help recognize miracles. Now, you can say that you don't believe in miracles. That's fine. But if we're going to be like, I could hold you to the fire and I can say, well, have you done research on miracles? Because there are volumes of books written by scholars, of books written by laymen about documenting miracles that have happened. And you would have to say that every single one of those is wrong, along with every single miraculous claim that's ever been made. So I don't imagine you'd want to say that. You might want to try to write it off as some phenomenon that's naturalistic, okay? But I think that like the whole point of me saying this was science. You don't use science to measure how a miracle works or something like that. What you can do is you can use science to determine what the order of nature is, and then if it's been violated, we might have just seen a miracle, like something like the resurrection of Christ, right? Um, we know that that would be a miracle because of science. We can see science can reinforce that
So
claim that this must be miraculous.
look, um, let me let me grant you the argument that there is a there is a cause, there is a beginning cause, and
Okay.
that cause is God. Let's get past that. We spend some time on that. So the next
Sure.
thing I want to ask you is, what makes you think this God is a Christian God?
So that's where I would turn to the reliability of Scripture and why I think that the accounts of the Gospels give us enough reason to believe that the resurrection is true. If the resurrection is true, Christianity is true. It really just
Uh,
boils down to the resurrection.
so that is it's sometimes I find it really hard. Anyways, I it's not really hard. I grew up with this, so I understand how it's easy to believe in this, but um uh, like almost none of the Bible makes sense at no level. I'm talking about at no level does it make any sense. Now, I haven't gone into other religions because I don't really think I cannot really spend my life going through one religion after the other to find out which one is true. But everything, like every almost everything in the Bible doesn't, it requires you to ditch everything you know about the reality that we know and we can observe.
No, it doesn't.
Everything, every single thing about the reality that we know and we can observe in order to
Why?
just to
Wait, wait,
believe
wait,
this
wait, wait.
tale.
That's a big claim, man. You got to justify that.
It's
Why?
not.
Why do we have to ditch everything we know to be a Christian? Why?
Yeah, because you have to start believing that someone spoke some words and this whole cosmos came into being. That's a thing you need to believe. You need
Why
to
is that?
believe
But
that
hold
this
on, hold
person.
on, hold on. Let's one
You need
claim
to
at a
believe
time.
that this
One claim at a
person.
time.
Okay.
Right? So the first thing you mentioned that God spoke the universe in existence, that's hard to believe, right? That's crazy. You're basically saying we know that didn't happen, but we have to believe that. That's what you're saying. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I don't think we know that didn't happen. I think that that's more likely to be than the universe popping into existence uncaused, like we talked about earlier. Now you've granted me the cause, so then we're going to say that the universe came into existence merely by chance.
No,
Okay, well, what's
I
the
never
explanation?
said by chance.
What's the
I
explanation?
never. We know a lot of what we see now is a result of evolution, and that has been proven. That's a fact
So the
that has been
explanation
proven. A
is
lot of what
evolution.
we see, yeah, chemical, physical, and
Okay.
biological, everything together. Yeah,
Okay. So what
reactions
what
and evolution.
matter or what matter was consisted of the singularity,
Sorry.
right? So for the universe to go from non-existing or not expanding to expanding, there was a change, right? There had to be a certain type of chemical something, chemical mixture or elemental mixture of a sort. Actually, elements didn't exist yet at this point, technically. So, or maybe just the first
Yeah.
three. So, what was that like mixture that was the cause that made the cause of the expanse? What was that?
So, so here's the thing. I understand you always try to pull me into that scientific part. I'm not too much of a scientist to
No,
know,
no, because what
but
I'm saying
here's what
is,
I can say.
go ahead, go ahead.
Here's what I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I want to say. I want to say that the people, the same people, the same method which has always given us the truth, the same method which is science. I consider this a method, and I'm sure that's part of the definition of science, is the method by which we figure out things, right? And this method, has been consistent over and over. Yes, true. Sometimes it's not consistent, but that's the beauty of it, because when we realize it doesn't give us the result, we come back to the drawing board and try to figure out where we went wrong. So this method, which we've been consistently using, this method is showing us and telling us that this is how things are. But no, you want us to ditch that what they're saying and go along with, a book that was written by people 2,000 years ago who believed only in mythology, that you
Well,
just
you're
want us to
presupposing
to
it's
to go
mythology.
back.
I don't agree with that.
We know that we know, and from history and from a lot that historians know about people at that time,
Hmm.
they were superstitious. They believed in all kinds of gods. They believed in all kinds of things. You want us to ditch these people who are giving us a method, a scientific method of how the universe came by.
No, I
You just
don't.
want us to ditch them
I don't
aside
want to.
and go with people who told us how God created the world from a book they wrote
Never said that.
2,000 years ago. At a
Never said
time
that.
when they believed in gods, they believed in talking snakes, they believe in things in, and you can see that from their history books, you can see that from their mythologies
Dude,
written at that time.
I never said that.
So
You're arguing against something I never said.
you don't believe in the Bible?
I do, but I don't believe we have to reject science to be a Christian.
Oh,
That's absurd. The
but
original scientists,
so
Isaac Newton, Nicholas Copernicus, they were Christians. The founders of science were Christians. Francis Bacon, they were Christians. Their motivation was to try to discover the world that God created. In fact, the reason they expected there to be order in the world is because of a creator who made the world in a somewhat orderly fashion to understand, rather than under like a naturalistic scope where we have no reason to expect order, we have reason to expect chaos and non-consistency. So I have no reason to reject science, and I've never said that, so I'm not sure why you keep saying that I reject science.
there is no science book or any method which proves that miracles are possible. So I do not think that science is compatible with religion, especially Christianity.
Why not?
There is no there is no science book which proves that miracles are possible. So
I
I don't
literally
see how
just
they're
explained to you
compatible.
earlier how science is the wrong tool. Science can tell us when the laws of nature have like what they are, and then we would use alternate means like forms of reason, induction, deduction, abduction to determine if the laws of nature have been broken. And we use science to detect what those laws of nature are. So what you're doing is you're using the wrong tool. Again, bringing a ruler to measure how loud something is. Wrong tool.
Hmm. Hmm. So what you are saying is that because you do not understand something, you could deduct, you could explain it, uh, because that's what miracles are. There's just some things we do not understand, or things we do not have enough data to pronounce on. It's just a basket where people put everything they do not understand into. That is a miracle. That's my simple definition of a miracle. It's
That's not the
something which
definition of a miracle, but okay.
people do not have enough information on. So if my brother comes and tells me that he saw a guy, just his head was flying on one side and his hand was flying and his clothes were following him and they were all flying, and I'll be like, this guy probably didn't understand what he saw, right? But you would be like, the guy was performing a miracle. Now that's the difference between us.
No, because
I
there are
say there
epistemic
that is
filters for
some.
miracles. That's like a completely absurd like scene to take place that has like no there's no reason for something like that to happen. Like I wouldn't just believe every miracle claim that's made. I'm not sure why you would think I would just because I believe that miracles happen. That's a really, really crazy vast generalization.
Listen, you would say you will say right now that you won't believe because it doesn't fall into a context which makes you want to believe it. If for example your wife had a, oh, let's not just say something crazy. Let's just say you had a brother who had a broken leg, and you went to church and prayed, and you came back from church, and that brother in 1 week was healed, you would
Uh-huh.
say it's a miracle. You just want to call things miracle that
Uh,
please you.
Not necessarily. Um, I would say something is a miracle. Like, for example, um, the case. I can't remember the kid's name. He's a 16-year-old kid who had a case of gastroparesis, where there's no known cure for this disease. It makes it so you can't eat. You have to be forced or fed through a tube. The kid had this disease for most of his life. He had doctors care for him this entire time that he experienced this disease until he was like 16 years old. And through a series of intercessory prayer, he ended up being rid of the disease. It left him, and he was able to eat and go on and live a normal life. Um, there's no scientific explanation for that. There are doctors that are scratching their head. I don't understand how this happened. There's no medicine that we gave him. Nothing took place. No changes that we implemented took place. So it's possible that his body just fixed itself on its own. But we've never seen that. We can't scientifically prove that that happened because that doesn't happen. We've never observed that to happen. We've only observed this condition to worsen because the body doesn't do that in that specific regard. It'll fix itself from like, white blood cells attacking, like an infected area or something like that in your body, but not in the sense of not being able to eat and having gastroparesis and then healing from that. And so, but there was one factor that happened before this took place, this change, and that was intercessory prayer from folks from a church. Now, you could say that, and there's a paper on this. There's a peer-reviewed study on this. You can look this up. Look up kid with gastroparesis miraculously healed. You'll find the paper. And you'll see it's written and documented, peer-reviewed. There's no explanation for this. Now, the skeptic could say,
So you
well, we
just
just don't
confirmed
know.
what I said. You just confirmed what I said
No,
because
because I gave
you
you
are
documented evidence of a case that's been peer-reviewed. It's not the same as just anything I hear that's a
you have
miracle.
given documented evidence on a case which a rare case, a very rare case.
Mm-hmm.
We do not know 100% about the human body. That is a fact. We do not know 100% about the human. If we knew 100% about the human body, no
Mm-hmm.
one would be sick. No one would even be sick. We do not know.
How
We
is that the
not
case?
not. Let's not even talk about 100%.
What
We
you just
do
said
not
was
know
false. It was patently
10%.
false.
Sorry.
Just because we know 100% about the human body doesn't mean we can prevent all disease. That doesn't follow.
No. Yeah, if we do know 100% how the human body works, we should be able to prevent every disease. Why not? If we know
Well, people
100%, we
can
should.
still choose to eat poorly. People can still inject themselves with things that they shouldn't. People can still make choices that would be bad for their health. So that's a priori false. Like that defeats your point right there. And then
Oh,
secondarily, people are born with genetic disorders that we can't change. We know about these genetic disorders. We know why they get them, but we can't
we
change
can't
them. Like
change
Down
because
syndrome, you
we
can't
cannot, because
prevent
we
that.
do not know how to. Because we do not know how to. If
No,
we
it's
knew
because there
how
is
to,
no way.
we
There's no
would.
way to prevent Down syndrome. Like, there's no way to prevent a chromosomal error. There's no way to prevent that. There's a way to try to precaution against that happening. There are steps you can take to be preventative, but there's no way to foolproof 100% prevent that. And that's just because there are so many factors that you have no control over, like
Yeah,
biological
you
factors.
you just said it that we have no control. There are factors we have no control over.
Hmm?
Yeah, what if we had control over what if we knew how to have control over those factors? You simply refuse to understand that the things we call miracles are the things we do not know, are the things we should classify under things we have not yet known. Because if in 200, 300 years ago, there are things which a doctor would have told you there is no way that we can do this. Things which we do now easily, like 1, 2, 3, ABC. We do it easily. So those things that you're calling miracles are things we should be classifying into the basket of we do not know yet. Yeah.
You can say that. Like I said, um, you could write off every miracle claim for that. Okay, you can do that, right? That's fine.
That's why I say that's the mistake you keep making because you keep calling it a miracle. It's just something which we didn't know. Yes, it's just a
I
rare
mean, you're
thing
just
which we
presupposing
didn't know.
that. I've given you a case study which you haven't researched. So I don't know how you would know that on a paper you didn't read.
Yeah, I agree that that's a case study, but that's a case study of someone saying that this thing, we do not know how it came back, but it came back and we were not expecting it to come back, and we don't know how it came back. That is just someone admitting in his thesis that he didn't know how it came back. Now, it
And the
could be,
intercessory prayer is
what
just
do
a
they call it?
coincidence.
What? Yeah, yeah.
It,
Let me tell you. Here's the thing. Almost everybody who's sick gets prayed on.
yeah.
Do you agree with me? Yeah. So
Well, I don't
which
know about
means
everybody, but a lot of
those the
people, yeah.
people who a whole lot of people who get
Hmm.
sick get preyed upon, which
Sure.
means that there's a high chance that one of those people might get well, and then they come with a testimony in church. Yeah. So, and some most often, those people who are being preyed upon are also being administered by doctors,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So we can't just say it was the prayers when the doctor
I
was also
agree.
there working.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So,
That's okay. That
yeah.
has nothing to do with my argument, though. Because what you're going to do is the best thing you could say, and it sounded like you were going to say was, well, why doesn't God heal everybody? Right? If God doesn't heal everybody, if everyone is not healed through intercessory prayer, then that means that it's not an effective tool, right? Because that would be a hole in the case for intercessory prayer. But there's a problem is that that is a double-edged sword. If I were to say, well, evolution, biological evolution as claimed by Charles Darwin, is false. And the reason it's false is because we don't see every transitional fossil in the fossil record, right? You would have to accept that. And I'm sure you don't accept that, right?
Well, as I said, I want to believe the people who have studied these things for a very long time and have pronounced that it's very factual. And
Okay, so you wouldn't
what
accept that. Yeah, so
here
my point stands.
here's the thing. What exactly is a transitional fossil? Because if we could say we humans are transitional beings,
Mm-hmm.
because we if we are evolving truly, then we are just in a stage of our evolution. So what you call transitional fossil is just another, if you take maybe see a bone of a
You're
homo
missing the point of my
sapiens,
argument, man.
that is transitional because they
You're
are in
missing
a,
the point of my argument. I'm not arguing against
okay,
evolution here. I'm giving
okay,
you
okay,
basically an ad absurdum, a reductio ad absurdum. I'm
okay,
showing you the argument that I
yeah,
made. I would not expect you to accept because it's not a good argument. But you've
okay,
made the
okay.
same argument against miracles. So if you were to say that that's a good argument against miracles but bad against evolution is special pleading. That's my point.
Mm, I didn't quite catch that.
That's okay. Um, there's nothing wrong. That's okay. Um, so my whole point is that you don't need to like. It seems like you have this impression that you need to disregard reason and science, logic. You don't need to do that to believe that God exists. In fact, I still haven't heard you give a viable explanation as to why the universe began to exist, but yet you reject God, even though God is a viable explanation as to why the universe began to exist. So
So,
that's weird to
yeah,
me.
yeah. So I think at the beginning of our discussion, I kind of made it clear that I was kind of torn between an infinite regress and an infinite universe, and um but the thing that crushes, so
We
because I
covered
was
that though.
torn between those two,
We covered
yeah,
that.
the thing that crushes my belief completely, especially in Christianity, is the
Hmm.
content of the doctrine and the Bible. That if that was true, right, if even if God was the cause, when it comes down now to which religion is the right one, Christianity fails completely. Yeah. Christianity fails completely on every single level.
If what fails?
Yeah. I'm talking about, even if I grant, I'm saying, if I even if I grant to you that, okay, I think that maybe there was a cause and there was a God.
Okay.
Christianity in itself crushes, like, it makes me want to go back to to the other thought that the universe was infinite because of the content of Christianity and of all the other religions. Like most of them are like saying a lot of like things that don't make sense at any level.
I'm not seeing the connection here. Why
Okay,
why is
I
Christianity like false even if you accept theism, right? Now you have no reason to reject miracles because you accept the existence of a supernatural being and a supernatural creator who miraculously created the universe. So like these lesser miracle claims are
so
not as
so
hard to believe. So I'm failing to see why Christianity specifically just fails. You haven't connected that those two dots for me.
yeah, I do understand that if I have to grant that there is a God spoke a word, and I'm just saying that an initial cause could be a God. Like an initial cause could be a God.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm just granting it for the sake of, that we may come to the strange things about Christianity. That's all. Like, it's
What
not like
strange
it's
things
because,
though?
no, because I just talked about, I talked about a lot. I pointed about I pointed the fact that uh he wants a relationship with us,
Okay.
but yet wouldn't show himself. For example, let me give you a simple
In
example. Like,
Christianity, this is the one story where God does show himself to us, comes down in the flesh as Christ,
of
the Son.
oh, I didn't see him, and the evidence for the guy
We
who
have
came
four
is
eyewitness
not
accounts for
enough.
him. Why is it enough? What?
Four,
So, yes, four. So, hold on a second. We're gonna test your historical criterion, like what you require for something in ancient history to be true. So, do you know what the most reliable method, or the reliable form of evidence, ancient historians use? Anybody who covers antiquity, the Bronze Age, like what do they use? What's the most reliable form of evidence from ancient history?
okay. So here's the thing. I'm gonna take you completely off path because my issue is not with history or whether how true the history is or is not, or how correct the history, or what is the criteria for good history. That's not my issue. My issue is we're talking about the God of the universe, the God who spoke words, and this cosmos, this unlimited cosmos came into place. He
Mm-hmm.
thought that to make everyone believe, he would send a guy to Earth, and people for millions of years later would believe that without any consequence, without any serious, without
Millions of
evidence,
years
which is
later. What are you talking about?
are you don't you, oh you oh I know in Christianity you think the world's gonna end soon, or don't you believe the
Well,
world's
no,
still
I
gonna go
just
on
it,
for a
we
while?
we have 2,000 years ago is when Christ came. So why are you
Yeah,
saying
I
millions of
know.
years later?
I'm saying this is what I'm
In the
saying.
assumption
So
that there will be millions of years of human
yes,
existence.
that's my
Okay.
assumption.
Okay. We
Yeah.
haven't even
So
had 1 million years of human existence, so I'm not sure
I
why
know,
we
right?
would make that
I
assumption.
okay. Let's just say well, I'm positive. I'm being positive here. So
Okay.
let's just say okay for let's just say for thousands of years to come.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I dare say for hundreds of thousands of years to come, people are going to base the coming of your son on this evidence, and you make it very, very, I don't understand. Like, you are the God of the universe. You spoke these words and everything came into being. And you thought that the evidence for people to believe for hundreds of thousands of years ago is a book written by a couple of peasants. And this book would stand the test of time for hundreds of thousands of years to come. And the reason right now people are so divided is because no one even agrees on what this book says. No one agrees on everything this book says. People are saying this way, people are saying this that way, people are so what was God thinking? Like everyone is going to be united on the message he's giving in a book? A book? It doesn't make sense. It would have made sense if he put the knowledge, like I could just stand here and recite Genesis, and like it would have made sense to me, like that the God with that kind of power and might, right? And living four evidences, or you said there were four. We don't know if there are even four, and they're doubtable. And it's years and years after Jesus came and went that people decided to even write stuff. And you can actually detect tons and tons of wrong things and mistakes and contradictions and false prophecies and all kinds of things inside. So it's a really difficult, it's a problem. It's a problem. It's not even about the historicity anymore for me.
So you don't care if the Bible's historically reliable.
Here's the thing. I know it's not. I could talk about that,
How
but
can you
I
say
thought
you
this
don't
was a
care
more
about that?
serious problem. I didn't say I don't care about that.
But
I
if it is
said
historically reliable, then what's the issue?
the issue is a God of that might. This is too small for him, don't you think?
Based off of what
Living,
background knowledge?
you
Like
don't think
you're
God is
what you're
powerful enough?
no, that's not the issue at play here.
You
I
don't
may not
think God
know
there could be a
why.
better way, which is like, listen, that's the president of the United States. I'm African, but the president of the United States, everyone, even if I hate him, I can't just deny that he's the president of the United States. There's no way I can deny that he's a president. Even if I hate him, I
Hmm.
cannot deny that. Why could God not give us such evidence that I can look? If you stand here, I can't stand here and say to your face that Donald Trump is not the president of the United States. I can't even say it with a straight
You
face.
could say
Why
that.
could God not do that? I couldn't. Why could God not do something like that? Like, wouldn't
I'm
that
not
be
sure why
like?
God would have to. I think he's given plenty of evidence for people to believe in God's existence, which is why the
You think the
majority of the
exist?
world thinks that God exists, and the majority of the world, like from like a belief perspective, the largest belief is Christianity. So that,
Um,
like, as far as like, well, we have to give reasons as to why what God has done is not enough. We can't just say why couldn't God do this. We have to say why the reasons that I would give would not be sufficient, right? Because if we just say I'm hold on a second, I'm getting the TikTok. You're not. I don't know why it always does this. It acts like I'm not here. Um, what I'm saying is, this is basically the argument called the argument from divine hiddenness, right? Now, what a lot of times happens is that people require a personal miracle to believe that God exists, right? Which is a very high epistemic bar. And it's, remember, you just said that you don't think miracles are real. So even if God did provide a personal miracle, you may still not believe. So it's possible that God knows people, some people, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you give them a personal miracle or not. You could write John 3:16 in the sky every day in the stars at nighttime, and someone would still not believe. Someone like Richard Dawkins, who blatantly says, even if I were to see a miracle, I would just write it off to a hallucination at this point. And that's kind of the real exposure of what a lot of the skeptics' minds are. And that's what Romans 1, like I said in the beginning, is talking about. Like, you give yourself away to a depraved mind. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing here, but what I'm saying is that if you start demanding a personal miracle, right, that seems pretty bold and brazen. And who's to say that you're actually going to love God if he does give you this miracle, and you won't just believe that God exists? Because, and remember, it's not just about believing that God exists. The demons believe God exists. It's about submitting yourself to Christ and following Christ, picking up your cross, bearing your cross. That's what it's really about. So I don't think that like demanding a person, that just seems like an unreasonable bar when so many other people don't have that bar and they've accepted Christ. They've believed that God existed. Like, actually, from like an atheist to theist perspective, there are very little atheists in the world. There are way more people that believe in some form of higher power than not. Like, it's by far. So you would seem that the atheist is in the vast minority. So you'd have to provide reasons as to why. Like, you could try to make the claim, some try to say that atheists are just smarter than theists, right? And you can make that claim, but the surveys that have been done by that just really show that it's more or less There have been a lot of secular people that have done more research into the topic, and they found arguments at the baseline level are unconvincing, but also you would have to show to be fully just, right? You would have to show that you've done everything you possibly can to determine whether God exists. Everything. You've read every book, you've done every study, you've done everything you possibly can do. Every moment that you have of freedom to spend on this, you have. And you've done every single bit of research. That then you can honestly say, I've done everything I can and I don't see a reason to believe God exists. Have you done that?
Well, here's the thing. I can't. Yeah, I've tried. I've tried. I can't. The thing is, life is short, man, and
Mm.
uh, I could spend. I could. Life is short. I could spend the rest of my life trying to find out if this God exists, or I could just live my life and go ahead with it because I do not see it. And that would be okay because I think I've spent a lot of time, 40 years, and I actually I actually understand. You know, the difference between you and I is that I have been in your position. That is the difference between you and I, but you haven't been in my position. So
I've tried
I
to.
have been, and I know why you're in that position because I've been there. Bon, I can't say I know exactly why you're there, but okay, the Christians all around me, from having spoken with them and having grown up with them, I know exactly why they are there. They are there because of generational introduction to Christianity, and which started since from times of old, like ages ago. So this is generational stuff, and the same thing happens with Hindus, with
You know, that's something called the genetic
uh,
fallacy.
with
When you say
with
somebody is only
Hindus,
something because of
with
where they grew up or the culture they grew up in.
is that is
Yeah,
there
it's
a
called the
fallacy
genetic
in that?
fallacy. Yeah. So
And
now it
what
doesn't
does
mean
it
you're
say?
wrong necessarily, but it's
Yeah.
making the assumption that someone is like a Christian because they grew up in a Christian culture, or a Hindu because they grew up in a Hindu culture. But just because they grew up in that culture doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be that.
No, when we say that, what we mean is just that they are most likely going to be that. I can tell you because all of my brothers and sisters are Christian. All no one I know personally
Mhm.
is
Well,
nothing
that's
else
not
but a
why I'm a
Christian
Christian, so it's not
because our
applicable.
parents are Christian. Uh, the, there are a few people. There are some exceptions. We do agree. We do. All we're saying is that, for the most part, most people, because you only got out because maybe at some point you made some, you got you researched and on your own and figured some things out. Some people never get to do it, that research that you did, and they just introduce the same thing to their children and their children's children, and the line goes on and on and on and on, and that's why Christianity flourishes the way it is because when it started, it started in a time of mythology and superstition, and so everyone was caught up in it. When I believed in this in my 20s, when I believed in this in my 20s, I didn't even know that there are people who existed who didn't believe in this. The day I heard about something called an atheist, that was in my 30s or maybe in my late 20s, I was like, what kind of human being is this? Like, this person must be, there is something inherently wrong with this person. But but that was just the society I grew up in. I knew nothing else but that, and that's how Christianity grows. I I personally know nobody. I'm in Africa. I know no one who's an atheist where I come from. No one, because it's generational, right? So yeah.
Or maybe it's just anti-intuitive.
You will not look. I have come to you. We underestimate the power of the brain and what it does, and how much when something is drilled into you for years, it affects you. it is crazy. When I look back at what I was before, I can't understand like how I went through that. Like the human mind is crazy. It is just crazy. Like if you grew up where everyone was worshiping, just look around you, look at a bottle. Uh, Maybe your bottle from which you're drinking water. If you grew up where everyone around you was worshiping that bottle and everyone was saying that this bottle has saved my life, this bottle has healed me, this bottle has given us life, this bottle created us. When you get to about 20, there is almost not, like if you take about 50 people, like 48 of those people will all their lives, there is nothing you will tell them that that bottle is not their God. There is nothing. That's
Listen,
the
man, I'm
power
not
of the brain.
doubting that what you're
That's the
saying
power of
has.
the
I'm
mind.
not
Yeah.
doubting what you're saying. I agree that that's how cults exist. That's how all sorts of wacky beliefs exist. But I think that Christianity exists independent of that. Because you have to
Hmm.
remember, with the history of Christianity and the inception of Christianity, Christianity was illegal in Rome up until the Edict of Milan under Constantine. So there's no reason. Was it Constantine? It was. I think it's Constantine. So there's no reason to believe that like that's how Christianity originally spread. It started under persecution. So there may be certain instances, certain communities where that's the case, but that is not how Christianity initially spread. Like it's patently false because it was deliberately under persecution. You're under, and then also there were many competing religions and cultures at the time of the inception of Christianity. But listen, man, I do want to get over. We've been on for a little over an hour
Yeah.
here. I want to get on to
Yeah.
my next guests. I appreciate you
Yeah,
coming
man.
up though, and
Th-
I would ask
Thanks a lot, man.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I am a Christian apologist. My goal here is to
Okay.
hopefully bring you back to Christ, regardless if what I say will actually do anything. But I do appreciate you coming up, and if I could recommend anything to you, I would recommend looking into the biggest questions and don't just write them off as I don't know. Because if let me give you, do you know Pascal's wager? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Whoa. Pascal's wager. That's really not a good thing to want to give me,
Well, no,
because
it's just something to
it's not.
think, right? Because if
Yeah.
because the risk is if Christian, like, let's
The
use
risk
our
is actually
rational
which God.
faculties.
The risk is actually which God am I supposed to follow if I have to consider Pascal's wager? Like which God will I have to? Because there are many. I'll have to go around and check which one is the right one.
You
Which
should,
one am I forfeiting?
you should.
I should for all. I should spend all my life checking which God is the right one.
But if it's possible that eternity is at stake, is it not worth it?
Yeah. I I do not really want to live for eternity. That is not a really healthy concept for people to be carrying in their mind. And I can explain. Well, my time is short. I could explain why, but that is a really really bad idea. It's like you come to the party and you want to stay in the party forever. Parties are not fun when after after 12 after 4 a.m. parties aren't fun anymore. You can't want to stay there forever. So the beauty of life is its shortness. It's its shortness. Yeah, that's
Okay.
the beauty of it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, if you think that it's more rational to just disregard the question and hope there's nothing to worry about,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
Well,
you're going to do. I would argue you're not using your rational faculties. You're not making the more rational decision there. You're making the more emotionally convenient decision. But I'll leave it at that.
okay. Okay,
Listen, what
man.
do I call you, by the way? Quick question. I didn't say that right.
Yeah, quiescent.
Quiescent. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. You're welcome back
Okay.
anytime. If you ever have any
Thank you,
questions, you
man.
ever hear anything, feel free to come back. Okay.
I really appreciate the calm discussion because other people it's like crazy elsewhere. Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
I've seen.
It was
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Like I said, you're welcome back anytime. Take care, man.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Alrighty. Let's see here. Um, let's see. Unitarian apologetics. I see Null Goat. I've seen you in the comments here. I think you're an atheist, so I think I'm going to pull you up. But really quick, I want to bring up the two Christians. I'm sure they have something quick they want to say, and then I'll bring you up next. So just hold tight for me. So Unitarian apologetics, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing? I like your show.
Oh, good, man. Thanks. Hey, listen, I don't have much more time, so I didn't really want to have like the Trinitarian Unitarian discussion. I did have that last time, but I wanted to spend the limited time I have more with skeptics, because at least you believe the faith, though you and I disagree on that fundamental issue. I am not one who necessarily disregards the salvation of a Unitarian. So, is that cool? Could we come back another time maybe and have this discussion, or did you have something you wanted to mention?
Yeah, no, I like your show. I tune in a lot. Yeah, maybe if you just see me some other time and we can have a conversation. I would kind of like I kind of want to challenge your definition of Christianity, and then I think that I would argue that the Trinitarian definition or doctrines are what hold a lot of people back from Christianity, I would say.
Okay, I get it. You're not the first person to tell me that. But like I said,
Okay.
we'll bring you up when I have some more time, and we'll go over that.
Yeah, no worries
Obviously
at all.
I disagree, but I appreciate you
Yeah.
tuning in, man. I just wanted to. I see you've been waiting, so I wanted to bring you up for a second.
I
All right,
appreciate
man.
it. Thank you, man.
All
God
right, man.
bless.
Take care. God bless. All right. Last person here before I bring you up, Logo. What's up, Logos or Logos?
I'm a Christian. Is that
I know.
okay? Or
I figured. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So I just want to say something. So like I used to be an agnostic for like 3 years. I had like a Christian mother and like an atheist father growing up, and then like I used to be an agnostic for 3 years. And when you read the Bible, it's literally like just so self-evident that it's true. Like even from the first few verses, right? There's 5 foundations of physics: matter, space, time, energy, motion, and whatever. And you see God creating all 5 in the first few verses of Genesis. In the beginning, that's time. God created the heavens, that's space, and the earth, that's matter. Then God said, let there be light, that's energy. And then the Spirit of God moved, that's motion, upon the face of the deep. And then, if you research all the history of science, it's like really crazy because all the stuff that they teach you in schools that allegedly like proves evolution, it's actually founded by creationists, and it's founded off the Bible.
Oh yeah.
And it's literally not even like like for example, dinosaurs, right? We say in our textbooks that Richard Owen discovered the dinosaurs, right? Well, it was actually Gideon Mantell, and Richard Owen is the same guy that said we're related to fish, right? But he actually stole Gideon Mantell's work, and Gideon Mantell actually said that dinosaur bones are too big in order to be buried over millions of years. They have to be buried all at once over a global flood. So all this stuff that we're teaching in schools, like that's just one example I could give, but all this stuff that we're teaching in schools that allegedly proves evolution, it's actually all founded off the Bible, has nothing to do with anything anyone says. And it's just funny. You know where the term species comes from? Species in Latin literally means kinds.
Probably from Carolus Linnaeus. No, well,
it means kinds from the book.
Closer to family, though, wouldn't it?
No, it's the term species literally means kinds in Latin, like kinds from the book of Genesis. And if you read Carl Linnaeus' writings, he actually was a son of a pastor, and he believed he received a vision from God that told him to organize creation.
Linnaeus?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay.
Now, there's a lot of... do you know what the first law of thermodynamics is?
Yeah, energy can't be created or destroyed.
Yeah. What did God do on the 7th day? He rested from creation. Right?
Yeah.
That's literally the first law of thermodynamics right there in Genesis.
It is?
Yeah, because he rested, he ceased from creation. Nothing can be created or nothing new is being created. It's all a replication of what existed previously. It's all a replication of the same information.
Okay. Interesting. Never thought about that.
Yeah, James Prescott Joule, he was a creationist, and he founded the first law of thermodynamics based off that scripture that God rested from creation.
Gotcha.
And he actually said in his writings, he says, believing that the power to create or destroy belongs to the creator alone, I affirm that any theory which, when carried out, demands the annihilation of said force is necessarily erroneous. In other words, any theory that seeks to remove God has to explain the first law of thermodynamics. It has to explain it, no matter what.
Right. Interesting.
And no atheist has ever done that. No atheist has ever disproven no atheist has ever disproven the laws of thermodynamics.
Well, they don't think that they have to. They think that's compatible with naturalism. But my whole approach for this...
It's not. It's all from the Bible.
Well, my whole approach is to try to disprove or try to show how naturalism is just a far more complicated hypothesis than theism. And so, like, accepting the like what follows from naturalism, the explanations that are tried to be given, like, if we disregard naturalism from the start, then we don't even have to assume the naturalistic paradigm to explain anything. We can just use the theistic paradigm. So a lot of the problems in the so-called creation evolution debate are just kind of squashed just by doing that.
Do you know how genetics was founded?
Mendel?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know that's founded off the days of the Bible? And I'm going to prove to you why. God created plants on what? Day 3, right? Yeah. But he didn't create all plants. It says he created self-pollinating fruit plants. He says the seed that's in it itself. He doesn't create all plants. He creates only self-pollinating fruit plants on day 3, right? Well, did you know a pea is not a vegetable, it's a fruit, right?
Really? A pea?
Yeah, it's not a vegetable, it's a fruit. So just like in the Bible, in history, just like in the Bible, the first time God created a living organism with DNA, in history, genetics is founded by Mendel, and he discovered how many laws of genetics? 3 laws of genetics. Just like God created the self-pollinating fruit plants on day 3. And he discovered it in a monastery.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Well, listen, man.
I'm telling you right now, all the stuff they teach you in schools that like allegedly proves evolution, it's literally all founded off the Bible. It's uncanny. And once you see the similarities, you won't be able to unsee them.
Well, that's interesting stuff, man. But listen, I did want to spend some time talking to Skeptics. I wanted to bring you up because I saw you were waiting. I see you in the chat here. I appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the info. If you got any videos or anything you want to send me to educate me on this, feel free. DM me.
No, I have a lot more. But I just wanted to share that information. There is a lot of like actual facts to prove the Bible. It's not,
Yeah.
It's just no.
That's cool, man. Well, listen, I appreciate your time, Mr. Lagos, and you're welcome back anytime. All right.
All right. I'll follow you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. God bless. All right.
Yeah, you too. I'm sorry if I took so long.
No worries, man. Take care. All righty. It's a cool guy. All right. Welcome up, Mr. Nullgoat. Or Mrs. Nullgoat.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Okay, perfect. How are you?
I'm doing well. I just want to branch in. I don't want to attack Logos for saying what he had to say, but even when I was a Christian, I think and maybe you'll agree, and I feel bad. I don't want to attack his beliefs when he's not here to defend them, but getting into kind of the numerology of the Bible and all that, I don't think is necessarily if God existed, what he intended. Maybe it's just all this magical revelation for each little passage of the Bible that can mean a million different things and be interpreted in different ways. God planned that 3 and 3 all along, but I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting what he had to say, but I also don't think it's probably the best use of time to be because you're probably not going to convert many people with, look, three for Mendel, 3 days plants were created.
Yeah, that's not typically the route I go. I find it interesting. I haven't went down that rabbit hole.
Yep.
No
And I don't want
particular
to
reason
I don't
why
I
I
don't want
haven't.
to attack or dwell too much on that, but like I would just challenge Logos to maybe I don't know, question that line of belief, like if that's where he's finding his inspiration and stuff. I think there's better things to like set your mind on.
Fair enough. Okay.
And then just to kind of branch in from like the other topics before I forget, I think what I don't know, Quisent or whatever his name was saying before, like
I
this
forget.
was probably like 30 minutes ago or maybe
Yeah,
even
yeah,
more.
yeah.
Um, but I think one of his main points that he wasn't able to get across was that he was trying to say, but there was kind of like some confusion. Was, oh, if you believe in the resurrection in the Bible, then you're like believing everything in the Bible and every single passage or something along those lines. And I think that's where he felt like he was having to throw logic out the window because I think there's some things that he wasn't willing to like just agree on or blatantly believe. Does that make sense?
It does, although I don't see why you would have to throw logic out the window.
Oh,
Um,
because I mean, so like, let's say you're interpreting a random passage of the Bible or something, and it's like, I'm just trying to like, I don't want to get like too in the weeds on like slavery or something, but like, you're dealing with like the Exodus passages on slavery or Leviticus,
yeah.
and you're trying to be like, oh, this seems weird. Like, how could a moral and loving God allow for this or even like post rules? Why wouldn't he just say, actually, don't own people? And
I
so
mean,
like
I see what you're
now
saying, but
I have to interpret this and find like a way to make this work and be a moral system and justify why God said this somehow with his own logic because I believe God's a loving God. So now I have to find a logical reason why this passage exists.
okay, I see what you're saying. That's not so. Like when we talk about logic, we're either going to talk about like the classical laws of logic, or
Sure.
um, which you would not have to violate to rationalize that in any way. Um, or now you could say like uh, being consistent with my current ethics view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's so I could see. I didn't see him saying that, but perhaps like if someone wanted to make that argument, like I've heard this argument before. It's
Right.
obvious, very common, brought up among skeptics. How do we deal with Leviticus? What is it? 25:44 through
Mm-hmm.
46, and Exodus 20:21, or 21:20, and there. But with those, so there are a couple points on that. Like, um, there are several routes you can go, but I don't do the whole. Well, you're an atheist, so you have no moral justification.
I
Because
appreciate that.
well, it's just it's philosophically
I
wrong.
got thrown off alive earlier today just because I was like, well, I think morality is subjective, and then they're like, oh, so you believe all these evil things are okay? I'm like, nope, that's not what that means. But
Yeah. The now I do think that atheistic realism has problems. I think, and I would make arguments to attack to pump those problems. I wouldn't just say it a priori. Well, you're an atheist, so you have
mm-hmm,
no reason to be a realist. Um, but as far as like I don't even usually take the moral argument. I guess initially when it comes to those types of things, because if you read in the New Testament, because there are a couple of like things to kind of change the background knowledge on our current view of ethics. Like somebody like you in particular, you think that you're a moral anti-realist, so you would say that there are no moral facts, right?
mm-hmm, I
Okay,
would.
okay. So what's your view? What is your ethics view?
I guess. Well, my ethics view is um, we're kind of agreeing as a society to get along
Okay.
and play this game of life. So we can see kind of like the maximalist like best view once we have that goal set. So it's like we want to maximize pleasure, minimize pain. How
Okay.
can we all do that together and figure out the best move to make each time? Now we know some moves are like in chess or something, a blunder of a move. So like that's going to be bad for like basically everyone in the scenario. So like let's, now that we know kind of like the goal and the rules of the game, now we can assess that and make the best decisions for the best outcome for maximizing pleasure, reducing suffering.
Okay. So that would be the utilitarian view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So and that's fine. To me, I would say that there are I would find problems with the utilitarian view, and I think actually most people today, whether they realize it or not, are utilitarians. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this is actually
I think
where
even Christians to some degree.
yes.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it. I used to be like this, and I didn't realize it
Okay.
until I started reading the early church, and I started learning. I got into philosophy, I guess at this point, several years ago, but that's where I really started to realize, wow, I have a very utilitarian mindset, and I'm not sure that that's the case, because I started thinking about some of the problems with utilitarianism, some of the arguments against it, beyond just the trolley problem, and there are, so I'm a moral realist because I am a metaphysical realist. So I think that there are moral facts, but so here's like the thing with the cultural relativism or cultural utilitarian view, because like you run into this thing to where, okay, the culture that we're relying on to where we have this social contract per se was developed somehow. This culture didn't just, come from nowhere. There was a series of events that led to this culture to be. And a lot of that series involved Christianity and people in power that used Christianity, or people culturally, even not in power, that used Christianity to bolster their values. So whether it was abstinence before marriage, whether it was following certain sacraments, whether it was going to church on Sunday, whether it was forms of sexuality, things like that. That is how a lot of these cultural values came to be. So then we start to change, and we try to use, like you had mentioned earlier, we're going to say that this will lead to a better conclusion, right? Some lesser or more of something will lead to a better. But by saying better, we have to ask, what do you mean by better? And so then you've answered the question. You said the utilitarian approach, which is more pleasure, less pain, right?
Right.
I'm not sure that is actually the case. I think there are a lot of things that we find acceptable today that if we truly examined on a utilitarian view, we would reject. Even things that are culturally popular today. So, for example,
well, and I'll just step in here. So I think if
go ahead.
that's the case, like if we're analyzing something correctly, which we definitely can, at the end of the day, like I'm just going to say that's going to reduce or be reducible to, oh, we're wrong and we shouldn't be doing that. Like it is actually going to be a better outcome if we do that thing. Like the best decision is the best decision. I'm probably sounding a little circular here, but I do you understand what I'm kind of saying
be
there?
Foundational, like there's just a point to where epistemology bottoms out. But if you do that under an anti-realist framework, it's more challenging, because under a realist I can appeal to, well, that's because it is the case, right? But as a anti-realist, you can't do that, because it's not the case because such a thing is true, because this is a fact, because it's not a fact per se. It doesn't exist independent of the mind, right? Whereas in the case of the anti-realist, it does. What these truths we're coming to are true, dependent on the mind, not independent of the mind. So it would still, I think that's where we're going to run into some form of issue. So let's use an example to try to show
Sure.
how the reductio would work, right? Try to use the most TikTok friendly example.
Sure.
Let's say alcohol, right? The alcohol, I think that under a utilitarian framework, if we on the face, you think, well, it's pleasurable to drink, right? People like to drink. They like to socially go out and have a few drinks, go to karaoke, whatever, have fun. However, there are people that take it too far, right? And this is before even asking, well, what is too far? What do you mean? Before we even go there, right? The fact that someone can go too far, that is going to be a danger for society. And there are other people that will see this person go too far and maybe start doing the same thing that they do. Let's say that person looks like they had more fun, right? And they continue to do that. And this just like continues to go. And ultimately, if more people start drinking more, will it be better for society? Will there be more pleasure? Well, actually, what will happen is there will be more pain. And so if that's the case, then we should actually, as a society, make it illegal to drink alcohol universally, because it actually is immoral because of what happens, the consequences, right? I'm not diving into consequentialism, but ultimately bringing more pain.
I mean,
and
utilitarian is a consequentialist morality, is it not?
I think that I don't want to say that there's no symmetry breaker,
I
because some ethicist that's way smarter than me would say there are. But for the sake of argument, we could say that. Thank you,
okay.
Diane.
I feel like I'm a utilitarian, and I would say I'm also a consequentialist because of the utilitarianism.
Okay. So then, like, do you agree that alcohol should be outlawed?
If it does more harm, like, see, I think that's where like most hypotheticals are going to break down with utilitarianism, because yeah, if hypothetically it did more harm than good, then yes, but I don't believe that's the case. So we'd have to like find something that would actually be the case, I guess. I don't know.
So, I mean, we could just use, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a law and predict, and we're doing this without we're only with very basic background knowledge. So what you could do is you could say, well, we're going to have more, we can add more information, like, well, we've had a society that has all these people that drink and they're okay. And what do you mean by okay? Well, that's a different ballgame, but just okay meaning they're alive, they haven't committed a crime, like a serious crime, maybe they jaywalked or something like that, but they haven't, I guess that's not a crime, it's a traffic violation. But you get what I'm saying, right? As opposed to,
I think, well, and sorry, I don't mean to
go ahead.
break down your hypothetical, but um for this argument and stuff, I don't think it's relevant because you're not necessarily arguing for a theocracy, right?
No. I'm just arguing
I'm
for
not,
a moral realism framework. And then if moral realism is true, then we say, okay, what's a better explanation for moral realism? Is it a theistic explanation or a naturalistic explanation or some form of non-theistic? So
because
I'm not
like, yeah, and I'm not talking about like, I don't want to apply my utilitarianism completely to laws of the land necessarily. Just
okay.
like you don't want a theocracy for America.
Well, my more,
or do you? I don't know.
No, like I think more of the view that I take is my ethics view is a mixture of natural law and virtue ethics. But anyways, this is kind of besides the point. My whole point was what you were addressing in the beginning, talking about like the slavery thing. What I was trying to get into was to say, like, I think that the view, if we say, like, you take the utilitarian view based off of an anti-realist framework, you're using a Christian framework to say, or at least a Christian grounded somewhat framework to say that slavery is wrong. And so by making that judgment upon those passages is a Christian notion. So although those passages are troubling, we're using a Christian framework to come to that troubling conclusion, as opposed to just being nonchalant, because the majority of societies throughout history were perfectly fine with slavery. It was, in fact, Christian abolitionists in the West that started the movement and continued the movement throughout the West in order to finally abolish slavery in the West. So that was kind of the point I was getting at. But let me ask you this, because this is the real crux of the matter here. Why you said you were a Christian, but you're no longer a Christian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what happened? This is what I care. What happened? Tell me.
Yep. You got it. So I was a Christian. I wanted to convert as many people as possible. I wanted the strongest arguments for my Christianity and my faith. So then I started looking at kind of like the best, more philosophical reasoning for why you would believe in a God. And then I felt like I poked holes in one argument, then another, and what used to be kind of like a strong bundle of sticks, if you took each argument individually and found holes in it, then I was left with eventually it felt like I was getting stronger and stronger in my faith, because I'd be like, okay, that's not actually a good reason to believe. That's not actually a good reason to believe. But then eventually there was no more good reasons to believe. And so then I became an atheist.
Okay. So you didn't find any arguments compelling?
Correct.
So every argument
I would find them, I would often find them compelling to start with, but then I would find like holes in them, like kind of like the moral argument for God. Oh, I believe that there are objective moral values. And then realizing, oh, I don't necessarily know and then if there are objective moral values, then God exists. And then realizing, oh, I don't actually know if moral objective values exist. So therefore, I don't believe that God exists in that argument. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, like, well, could there be, how do I escape like something that's like or there needs to be an uncaused cause or something. So there needs to be a God. But actually, does there really need to be that? I don't think there does. There has to be.
Did you, by any chance, like, who are the figures that you read to get into these arguments?
The figures that I read to get into
like
the arguments,
the people,
I would listen to a lot of Christian apologetics, like William Lane Craig, and then I'd listen like on the atheist side of things, like Matt Dillahunty.
Okay, I've actually debated Matt Dillahunty on his show. He booted me off his show
back in the day.
It wasn't that. It was maybe a year ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, he booted you, but yeah.
Well, no,
I hate when
That's fine. I expected him to do that because he was not prepared for my argument, and that's fine. And I actually think William Lane Craig, I used to really idolize him until I started to realize some of his arguments are problematic. The only argument that I don't find problematic of his, how he defends it, is the Kalam. And that's because that's where he did his doctoral work. And so he actually like spent a lot of time in defending the Kalam. I still have my own way of defending the Kalam. I think my way is better. But I'm also like standing on his shoulders and everyone else's shoulders that did work before me. So it's kind of unfair for me to just jump in there and, raise my arm up like I'm the victor. But you get what I'm saying. But I would agree with you. His defense of the moral argument's pretty bad. It's pretty easy to defeat. I think he's really good at he's a smart guy, very great at rhetoric in debates. And at the time when he's debating the new atheists and other folks that weren't prepared for him, he will stomp on you because he's a fantastic debater. But when it comes to actually like taking time to write out arguments against what he's done, like there's been many papers written against his arguments by philosophers. He's got some problems he's got to work on.
Yeah.
So, but
Like I actually got an opportunity, like this was, oh man, probably 10 years ago at this point, to
Okay.
ask William Lane Craig about the Euthyphro dilemma. And his answer always just makes me want to like smash my head against the wall, but that's besides the point.
well, I don't think he's necessarily wrong in what he answers, but he doesn't explain it.
Yeah,
So
that would make sense for sure.
you can say that it's not a true dilemma and that God is the good or God's nature is the good.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that doesn't really follow from his view of I guess he's a neoclassical theist with a strange view on the nature of God, because he rejects classical theism and divine simplicity, all sorts of other things. So there are some problems that he doesn't like address with that. But I think that the moral argument is probably the hardest to defend if there has been no metaphysical groundwork done first. So that's why I never use it. I rarely use a moral argument unless it's in a Bayesian manner. So what is your opinion on the design argument?
The design argument, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You wanna lay it down for me a little bit? I mean, like, is that kind of like just watchmaker and like what are the odds or whatever, or
So, I mean, there's watchmaker is a form of it. I specifically run a Bayesian form of the argument, which I think is one of the better arguments for God's existence. And the only there have been two good objections to it, and I think I've successfully overcome both of them at this point. All right, so let me run down my argument for it's a design argument from a Bayes perspective. So, are you familiar with Bayes' theorem?
I just know that it has to do with probabilities.
Okay,
Is
cool.
that correct?
Yeah, Bayesian probability. So I'm going to try to draw this out as simply as possible. Right, so the goal here is we're going to observe two different hypotheses to try to explain or try to raise the prior or try to figure out what the best explanation for a life-permitting universe is, right? We exist in this life-permitting universe. So what better explains that? Theism or its negation? Its negation could be atheism, could be naturalism, could be atheistic, naturalism, atheistic, non-naturalism, whatever. Just some negation of theism, right? So what explanations could you give me to increase the prior or increase the posterior, either or, on, and what I'm just saying is like the probability before or after given said hypothesis. So given either of those non-theistic hypotheses, what explanation could you give to increase, to like for us to expect a life-permitting universe? So I'm going to say, and you can tell me if you disagree, that there is no explanation that the atheist can offer. You're going to appeal to a brute fact or to chance, which neither are an explanation. A brute fact, by definition, is there is no explanation. It just is. Or B, chance, which isn't actually an explanation. It's just kind of throwing the dice and hoping that in the case of the universe being with this, there will be life. So we're not actually raising the probability. We're just rolling the dice here. So unless you can give like a firm, sufficient explanation, we have no reason to raise the probability. Whereas under theism, on a specific model of theism I would defend, which is either classical or neoclassical theism, where God has the three omni-attributes, right? One of them, omnibenevolence, that means God's good. If God is good, then God would want or be motivated to create a life-permitting universe over a non-life-permitting universe.
Why?
Because that will bring about more good than a non-life-permitting universe. And if God is good, Right? He would want to create more good. He'd be motivated to, because that's part of his nature.
Why
And
would it create more good?
so one example could be there are beings like us, rational beings, that are capable of moral goods because we have the rational faculties to do such moral goods.
So any good and any, but in your calculation, does any bad outweigh the good? Or I'm sorry, I'm going into utilitarianism, I guess,
Right,
but
right. In
you're
this
just
case,
saying any good, and if there's suffering, then hey, that's good. Any good that any additional good is worth any suffering.
that's not necessarily entailed by the argument. It's
Mm-hmm.
merely just that they're capable of doing good. So that's an explanation for the motivation, right? So like we could go into like the problem of evil, but it's possible that, well, A, I would argue God is not a utilitarian, but
Right.
B, we could just say that there will be, if God creates this life permitting universe, there will be more good than there will be evil. Now, like evil, so creating free creatures, you're going to have like the risk, or you're going to have the possibility of evil, because you have beings that will choose to not do good. They will lack good in their decision making, their actions. And that's true. That's possible, right? But we're not negating the good per se. Like there's not like
Mm-hmm.
a sheet. The whole purpose is just to say that there is good. And so
And I
all
don't
I'm
want
doing,
and mm-hmm.
well, I'm saying all I'm doing here is I'm providing an explanation to raise the probability under theism. So we have a reason to expect a life permitting universe under theism. We don't under its negation. That's what I'm arguing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can get that, and I think I can respond to it, but sorry, and I don't mean to distract from like basic like oh like stupid what's the word I'm looking for, stereotypical like gotchas, but like why do you think that like a complete all perfect being would want to create additional things knowing what would happen, or if they are truly complete, why would they feel the need to make something else?
You could say that by not creating something else, that could be selfish, right? Um, if you truly like two parents that get together, choose not to have children. Um, like let's look at the motivations of parents choosing voluntarily here. This is not the case of people who
Mm-hmm.
can't. People voluntarily choose not to have children, right? Is it ultimately, are we going to boil that down to a virtuous or non-virtuous thing, right? Well, having children requires self-sacrifice, right? Self-sacrifice is the highest form of virtue. And so if that's the case, then being more virtuous would be more good, at least in my version of ethics. But I would think even a utilitarian would agree that
Mm.
something that's more virtuous is
Yeah.
more good.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, and we can move on, but I'm thinking they're going to be like, if a child's going to be suffering more, then they actually have a moral obligation not to have a child.
so I guess we'll move on, but there are
Yeah. Do you get where I'm coming from, though?
no.
I
Get
don't
I
mean
get where you're coming from,
I understand where you're coming from too.
right? But and this is more in like the everyday sense, right? Because the only way that argument would work is if the child would always suffer more in every circumstance. And I don't
Mhm.
imagine you would make that case.
Well, no, I would say the net suffering is what I'm concerned about most.
No, I get what you're saying. So my whole
Yeah.
point though was, so I have a different view on foreknowledge than you probably have heard. I'm not an open theist, but I take more of the Eastern view. So in Christianity, I'm not sure if you're aware, but prior to Protestantism, there was two churches, and then prior to that, in the 10th or 11th century, there was only one church, right? And there was a combination of the East and Western Christianity, which had a schism. Now you had the Eastern Orthodox Church
Hmm.
and the Roman Catholic Church. Okay.
I know some good Greeks. Yeah.
Okay, right. So I think that a lot of the Eastern theology, which is actually closer to the original view of Christianity, makes a lot more sense. So one of the views on foreknowledge, this comes from starting with Tertullian, who's a very early church father, not a saint, but an early church father, and ending, and when I say ending, I mean like most precisely defined by John of Damascus, is that God's foreknowledge starts on a person, right? One of the most valuable things to a person is their freedom. So God doesn't have foreknowledge of what a being is going to do prior to creating them. He has foreknowledge of what a being is going to do once they are created. I don't know about like the answer to, well, does God create souls and then put them into bodies, or
And
right?
what's the like biblical backing for that belief?
So, well, there is no biblical backing for any specific
Just
foreknowledge belief. There's
okay.
just biblical backing for foreknowledge. So the question is, how does the foreknowledge work? And so I think that this posits the least amount of ad hoc reasoning or post hoc reasoning.
Okay.
This is
Well,
actually
do you
positing
think, sorry,
lesser.
I'm just trying to like think and I don't mean to distract
No,
you,
that's
but
fine.
like I knew you before you were in your womb type verses kind of come up, so like that seems
Yeah, that's
like
why I said I don't
count.
know where,
Okay.
like, if God.
Where the being starts.
Right,
Okay,
that's what I
gotcha.
was saying. Like, because there are some people in the Eastern Church, like Maximus the Confessor, that will say that you are created at conception. Like God creates your soul at the moment of conception, and then your soul and physical are never separated. Like that, there's like this moment of harmony. I don't know about that. Um, that could be true, but I have no reason to not be agnostic on this because it's so there's not a lot of information. So we have verses like what you read. So that's really what we have to go off of. That's not enough for me to conclude one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why I'm only sticking to the foreknowledge piece, because I think we can use philosophical reasoning to justify if God is to have knowledge of a being, right, and then choose not to make this being, we've run into a contradiction. And logical contradictions cannot be true. So if that's the case, then we have no reason to believe that God would create contradictions. It's incoherent, so there's no reason to believe that God has foreknowledge on beings that don't exist, because he could choose not to
Yeah.
create them, otherwise he doesn't have free will.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it makes sense with like if you believe in fallen angels and whatnot.
right, and this is going to be the same for people as well. So when when God created Mustache Man, he didn't know what Mustache Man is going to do till the moment he was created. That person, their being, was the causal agency, is the causal agency to their actions. And so once that being is, and when I say is, like is created is, now God knows what they're going to do. But then you would ask, well, why doesn't God just not let them exist anymore? Why doesn't he just poke those really bad ones out, right? But then you run into the problem Tertullian posed, which is you've judged them prior to their actions. So now you've judged them and they didn't even do what your foreknowledge. We've now again run into a contradiction because you've smited them before they could even do what you've foreseen them to do, foreknown them to do. So the knowledge isn't even real. Again, contradiction. But then also that would just be patently unjust. They didn't do it. So this is like that movie Minority Report. Have you ever seen that?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's the same thing, right? So
Yep.
that would not be just.
Precogs. Yep.
Right. Great movie. But anyways,
Yep. Totally. Fucking Tom Cruise.
yeah, he's a good actor, man. I can't hate on
Yeah.
him. But anyways, so point being, that's how my view of foreknowledge is. So that kind of helps intuition pump here in a reasonable manner why God would create beings with the possibility of evil, just not knowing
Sure.
the specific evil each individual will do until they're actually created, right? And then we've kind of made this commitment, and so the other way around would be something unjust. So that is why that would be an explanation as to why God creates people in that manner. So that would be my explanation there. So I think that would get around the problem of evil, specifically with moral evil, and so that would then thus keep the bolstered explanation of the goodness in creating life, which is good.
Gotcha. So like your main argument for design and things existing is because you feel there's a higher likelihood because of the explanation where of a God existing, and if a benevolent God exists, then he would want to create life.
So I think it's more than
What piece
just.
am I missing? Okay, yeah,
So
go
I'm
ahead.
saying I think it would be more than just life, the existence of life. That's just one condition we're talking about right now. But I think this is a teleological argument. It's a design argument or a fine tuning argument. But I'm specifically focusing on one aspect of the universe that we observe, and I think theism better explains that than its negation. So that's going to make theism more probable. So if theism is more probable, that by definition means it's more likely to be true. Therefore, we ought to be theists instead of the negation of theists.
Gotcha. If a good God exists. Yep.
Yes. So the route typically we go from here is like, well, why would we believe in that form of God, right? Why not a deistic God? Why not an evil God? Why not a polytheistic God? And I have arguments against that as well. Where like, first off, does this seem profound to you? Like this, have you ever heard a design argument like this before?
Um, yeah, I'd say like to some degree. Usually it's like the worst version of it is like, oh, if we were an inch closer to the sun, we'd all burn up. And it's like, okay, well then, you know,
Well, this doesn't. This could be used with that same thing, like the
no,
Goldilocks
don't do
zone
that.
thing.
That makes it
Um,
weaker. No.
well, no, it's because what the problem is. Most people will bring up like, well, they bring up the anthropic principle, and they think that's some sort of defeater. But the anthropic principle, I feel like was
What is that again? Sorry,
well, we
refresh.
live in this one universe, so of course this is what we observe. So because we
Hmm.
observe it, we're just like noticing things, or the puddle analogy. So we think that
Right.
those are good explanations. But like I think the response analogies to that completely destroy the anthropic principle, like the firing squad analogy. Like that's like saying somebody is being sentenced to execution because they've pulled a Benedict Arnold, right? And so they were sentenced to a firing squad. 100 highly trained military marksmen have their rifles pointed towards the perpetrator. Perpetrators lined in front of them or sat in front of them. They're all lined up, ready to go, armed and ready. They verify that their rifles are locked and loaded, and then they fire upon the perpetrator. And all of them empty out their AR-15 mags. Right? They completely empty them out, 30-round mags, and not a single round hits the person. Right? Um, like, is the person going to say, this is unbelievable, I can't believe that they didn't hit me? Or are they going to say, well, I'm still here, so obviously they, this was supposed to be, why am I questioning this? I'm still here. Right? The odds of that happening are astronomically low. So we don't just like disregard how unlikely that is because it happened. That's my point. That's like how the analogy
Okay.
addresses that. And there are others too that address that. That's the funniest one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't see the necessarily like the direct correlation between that, like, and maybe if I like
Well, the
I don't
question
know, the
is it
puddle, like the
likely?
puddle analogy and stuff, where it's like, okay, like actually, I think scientists have shown like if we were an inch closer, actually we'd still be in survival mode, or if like hypothetically we say that like, oh, like we
I'm
actually
not making it
evolved,
that
like
exact. What
we
I'm
evolved to our
no, I see
like
what you're saying.
surroundings or whatever, right?
What I'm saying is like someone who would make the argument that we're in the Goldilocks zone, right?
Hmm.
You, it's
Oh, okay.
undeniable that we are in a position to where life is permitted, and
Hmm.
given a certain amount of alterance to that, life would not be permitted. So, and then we look at like all the logical possibilities of where the Earth could be, and there's a vast amount of where the Earth could be as opposed to where we are, and so that's kind of how that works. So it's not like I've heard people who say, well, if the Earth were 1 inch closer to the sun. I mean, these are just kind of like colloquial ways, or
Right.
they're not really actually like diving into the argument in full. But anyways, back to the original argument that I made.
Yep. Yeah, go for it.
What are your thoughts?
I'd say it listening to it, I'm really trying to understand like where you're coming from. I can't wrap my head around it as like, and I try to be um unbiased and be like, okay, like let me act like our minds are combined and I'm just kind of like having a conversation with myself, if that makes sense. So I can kind of like take my ego out of it and just be like, oh, these are my own thoughts, basically. And when I'm hearing you speak, I'm kind of still hearing like, okay, but why would I assume that there's a God in the first place? Like,
I see
um,
what you're saying.
when I could be like, okay, but like I don't know. Like the biggest thing for me is how could a mind exist without a brain? Because that's something like that we've never experienced, and it doesn't make sense to
Mm.
me that something that thinking takes energy. And if there's no physical energy, how could something be thinking?
If there's no physical energy, how can something be thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this is more of like a category error because
Okay.
in order
Yeah, to
for
explain.
energy to be used, energy is work, right? So and what's working is matter. So the capacity to work is like the potential for energy, right? So if a mind is metaphysical, then it wouldn't need this physical thing we called energy. That would just be a category error. So like what most folks mean when they say a metaphysical mind, they're
Yeah.
going to mean something. If it can think, it wouldn't require energy in a physical sense, because that's energy being used as work is
Right.
specific to matter, and metaphysical
Right.
by definition is not physical. So there's no matter being adjusted at that point.
Yeah.
But
And I guess I can't wrap my head around a metaphysical mind.
well, that's so. When you say you can't wrap your head around it, um, like you just don't understand it, or it just you
It
a
doesn't
priori
make sense.
reject it.
Yeah, I feel like it's more of a priori, like, why would I think
Well,
that
the
that would
question is,
even
why
be
wouldn't
possible?
you?
Why wouldn't I
Right.
allow for that?
Yeah, yeah. Why would we reject it a priori as opposed to like come at it from an agnostic standpoint?
Hmm. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just,
Got to break those presuppositions, man.
hey, I'm trying to. I mean, I didn't used to have that precept, so I used to have the opposite precept, right?
Yeah, and
So,
I understand that. And I'm an evidentialist apologist. I don't argue precept arguments. I don't like them. And some people mistakenly think that this is a precept argument. You'd mentioned something earlier, and I'll leave you with this because I do have to hop off here soon.
okay, yeah.
My wife and I like to watch animes on late Friday nights after
Oh,
my
hell
lives.
yeah,
So
brother. Which one are you watching?
right now we're watching Tokyo Ghoul.
Okay,
I don't know if
nice.
you've ever seen that. It's pretty cool.
Yep. I can't. I keep on trying to rewatch it and get through it, but I always kind of like trail off on like the second season.
That's where we're at right now. So hopefully
Nice.
it doesn't happen.
Hopefully you'll fare better than me. My wife actually, she didn't really watch it, but she's obsessed with that the closing song for the
The
anime in the
bass,
first
the
season.
hot
Yeah.
bass line, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. We've had a bad habit of now we've gotten anime talk here. We got to get through this. We've had a bad habit of going through. I'm going to mainly blame my wife of not finishing animes in full. I have like a thing where I have to finish it, even if it's not that
Hmm.
good, just to finish it, Because even with like Attack on Titan, I liked it, but it's not in my top. And I finished the whole thing despite not wanting to. But like Hunter x Hunter, we only watched 4 seasons and there are 6. I want to watch the other 2. I don't know if I can get her to watch the other 2.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great show. Same for, there's this other show called Code Geass. It's actually pretty good. Have you ever seen that? It's pretty old. It's
I've
good.
watched a little bit of it, but yeah,
Okay.
it's been a long time.
Okay.
But I will say, at least we can agree on this, that Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the greatest and best anime.
That is my wife's favorite.
Okay.
That is her favorite.
Well, at least we can agree on it.
It's in my top 5.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest to me. My favorite, so the Dragon Ball series is untouchable. It's nostalgic. That's in its own.
For sure.
Like, you can't
I
even
gotcha.
touch that. That's not even
I
fair
was there.
to grade it. But outside of that, my number 1 is Solo Leveling. That's just,
Okay.
I love that show.
Yeah, I was digging it. I think it was one of those things where it got overhyped, and I was just like, before I started watching it. So I should have watched it sooner, but yeah.
That show, that's number 1 for me. So top 3 is Solo Leveling, Demon Slayer, and then
it's fun.
Yeah, Demon Slayer is awesome, and Black Clover. If you ever seen that, you have to watch it.
It's been on my list for sure.
It's long, and they're coming out with a new season this year, but you got to watch it, man. It's fantastic.
Okay.
But anyways,
have fun with the anime tonight.
I definitely will.
It was a great talk.
Yeah, man, and I would leave you with
time.
trying to do me a favor and try to look up like the better. Don't stop at William Lane Craig and Matt Dillahunty.
Oh, I know.
Like,
I'm not. I didn't stop at them.
Okay. Because Matt Dillahunty is not a good like atheist source. His reasoning is pretty bad, and you'll see even like other atheists show you why there's problems with his arguments. But I would try to look down these Bayesian arguments and see what your thoughts are, because I think that they're extremely powerful. They changed my perspective because I used to run a lot of deductive arguments, and then I started to realize they're not very humble, and they seem a little bit too aggressive, and we don't have to be that way. So we really do have good reason to believe theism is more probable. Here's a way to show that. So anyways, I appreciate your time. If you ever want to come back up and chat, feel free.
Cool.
It was cool
awesome.
having you up.
Appreciate you. Have a good, well, it's Friday. Okay. Have a good Friday.
Thanks, man. You do the same. Appreciate it. Take care. Alrighty, so that was a fantastic conversation as usual. That was a lot of fun. Thank you guys, everybody who came up. I appreciate all the love, all the hate, all the in-between, as usual. So if you guys, if you enjoy the channel, please follow the channel, subscribe to the channel, whichever platform you're on. If you want to come on YouTube, please, YouTube chat. One of you guys, I know Kentucky Atheist, you sent me an email. We'll have to do a follow-up to schedule a talk. But if we could get somebody from YouTube to join in the guest box, I leave this up. I got this perfect little link that you can click on and you can join. But for my TikTok guests, thank you guys. You guys are always there, ready to have a conversation. Like I said, I appreciate it. What other religions do you folks find on lives and argue? I mean, I've talked to Muslims, I've talked to other forms of Christians, and then mainly skeptics. I'm mainly looking to speak to skeptics to try to provide them with what I think are probably lesser heard reasons to believe in God, because I think Christianity is true, and if Christianity is true, we have a great commission that we're called to, and that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm called to do as Christ. I want to follow and submit myself to Christ. So, anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Truth Over Tea. God bless. Alrighty, and YouTube folk, I still got you guys up. Like I said, make sure on the next live you guys check out the link in the description and join. I will try to make a specific time for YouTube alone because I want to get more YouTube guests on. I also want to try out this Video Ninja and Kentucky Atheist. I will be responding to your email. So otherwise, I hope to talk to you soon. Have a great evening, everyone.